record. Oh.
All right. So welcome everybody. I have a friend of mine on today, Erin Patterson, who is the goodness chick. She addresses the joys and challenges of life, focusing on mental health issues. She's a coach, she's a podcaster, a fellow podcaster, and a motivational speaker. And we originally met in a mastermind.
Yes, we did.
About what did you say, 2.8 years ago?
2.8, yeah. I was trying to rack my brain a little bit. I'm like, it's almost been 3 years, which is crazy.
Yeah. So tell my audience a little bit about your background, because we have similar ways of leaving certain stability and going for it. So I'm always inspired by that, of course.
It's kind of cool, right? Because I was thinking when I was talking with being on your podcast and I on yours, it's so funny how paths connect and then reconnect over time. And I know I can literally visualize sitting in my bed at the end of the day, kind of getting every dinner done and dishes, and then closing the door and being part of the mastermind and being amongst 15, 20 women, and how much I looked forward to that. And it was really, for me, a very pivotal time in my life where I was 14 years in as a high school, it's called a SAC counselor, we'll say a crisis counselor in Southern New Jersey. I loved it. It was just a beautiful, beautiful chapter of my life, working with students dealing with mental health, dealing with addiction, housing and food and all that jazz, just life stuff. But about, I'm going to say a few months after I had my son, there was just this feeling that I began having of a lack of peace, and knowing that I wasn't sure what was next, but something was next. And it was time for both my husband and I, and he was in the same school district I was. He was an assistant principal. I was a SAC counselor, for us to leave. And so with that, it was crazy because, we both had very stable, good paying jobs, and in a great school district. And people were like, what are you doing? What about, your 401k? What about your pension? What about this? And what about? And we were responsible in how we dealt with what we did. But I knew there was no way that I was going to look back in 15 years and say, what did I not do? So I handed my resignation letter to my supervisor, who was kind of flabbergasted and, what are you doing? And try to explain it was time to leave. Well, what are you going to do next? And I knew I had already started my podcast, The Goodness Chick, and it kind of lit this fire under me. And I had been speaking for a number of years. I did most of the assemblies at the high school I was at, motivational speaking, talking about, from mental health to drinking, and driving to, self-care to eating disorders, you name it. I spoke about it, and I loved it. And I believed from that point, I actually started, I started doing speaking outside of my school district, and I was getting paid to do something that I loved. And so with that, we left our jobs. A month later, right? I'll back the train up just a little bit real quickly. We sold our house. We bought a one-way ticket to Romania, and it was my husband and then he was 3 years old son at the time. And we were going to go around the world. One of my bucket list and my husband Keith's bucket list was, before we die, we want to go around the world. And a lot of people talk about that, but it was like, let's do it. And I wanted to incorporate it where it wasn't just taking pictures and eating cannolis and, and yodeling on mountaintops, but it was about helping people. Yeah. That's, I believe, a core within us is if part of our mental wellness is serving other people. And so what I did was, it was connecting with people every single place we went. And I interviewed people. I tried to raise money for different nonprofits. And when I tell you, it was a wild 10 months of literally going around the world and meeting people who, as we talked before, staring fear in the face and using it to fuel them. And it inspired me. It challenged me in so many ways, our 10 months, to grow and to continue forward and just keep going, if that makes sense. So I kind of went on a rampage there, but and now I'm in Florida. I'm in whatever this is, somewhat southern Florida, social distancing, and still doing work via my computer, which has just been a blessing. And going forward.
Isn't it such a blessing though? We can still do our podcast. We can still get our message out on social media. We can still.
It's kind of cool. I mean, we talk about like a lot of times negatives of social media. Well, looking and using it for positives to empower and encourage people during a time that a lot of people are feeling disconnected or sad and lonely or funky train, and to empower one another. There's power and positivity through that.
Couldn't agree more. And I just think, obviously, because of my story leaving pharmacy, hearing that you and your husband both left stable jobs.
Super stable. Like he actually retired early, air quotes. And, you know, I mean, you talk to anybody, I mean, like look in your field where it's like, well, you do this many years and you have this much saved, and then you do this, and then you connect the dots. And that works for some people. That's not me bashing that if that's what they're supposed to do. But when you go outside of that line, it's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? And I will tell you, two years later, there's still stuff that's unknown, but I don't know everything because I'm not God. And I love just allowing myself to grow. I love being able to podcast and say whatever I want to say. I love being my own boss. I love setting the rules that I can encourage. Like I'm doing a bunch of work about the coronavirus with schools and different businesses through my computer. And it's I think when we believe and we know that our abilities to impact others is unlimited, if we let it be, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So tell me more about the speaking and things that you're doing now with the schools. How's that looking?
So, okay, this is kind of cool. Back in the day, I'll say air quotes, when I was at my high school, I created a drug prevention program that was like the antithesis of the DARE program, right? It was empowering kids through community service and using their past to fuel them. So I left that, right, when I left the school, but I actually had been working with a school within Southern Florida that has had me kind of recreating that, if you will, a prevention program empowering kids. Well, now coronavirus came, right? Boom, school's shut. But through that school and a few different other schools have picked me up to say, hey, Erin, what do you think about, I created a course essentially on ways to help yourself and grow through our current situations. And I do think, you know, we could panic and easily freak out, right? If we let ourselves, and there's things to get uncomfortable about, but what are we going to do right now with our current situation for us to be healthy and to grow? And that's kind of like, that's what I'm doing. It started 4 weeks ago. A school actually in New Jersey had said, hey, Erin, can you put something together? I don't really know what that is, but we've got a few thousand kids who are in a place they've never been before and staff. What can you do? And I was like, all right, let's do it. And I had never done anything like that. I mean, I have never been through a pandemic before. Boom, stepped up to the plate, and then another school approached me and so forth. And so, and part of me, just like with you, my wiring is like, I'm not sitting still, right? I want to help people. I want to encourage people. This has definitely been a part of that process. And it's been really, really cool. The different doors it's opened. And it's challenged me to recreate different spokes in my wheel that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah, and that just shows too that you're pivoting in the time. You're offering something that maybe it was a need, but in a different way. So that's so cool.
It's been cool. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands, we'll say millions of kids who are home right now, right? Whether mom, dad, or whoever, grandparents are there or not, like if they're off work, what can we do to serve our kids that are anxious, are in a place that they've never been? And I believe we could have them scattered and frenzied, or we could say, hey, guess what? Yeah. This is a time that's uncertain and it's a little anxiety provoking, but here are some ways that you, at the end of this, are an even better person. But because I'm a big believer in taking ownership, just like we referenced before, it's up to you. I can't make you get out of bed in the morning and do math class, right? I'm not there. That'd be weird and illegal. You know, I can't make you, eat healthy and try to, instead of eating a box of Pop-Tarts, I'm going to jam with some strawberries, right? So it's empowering them to going outside. One of my things I focus on with kids and adults is spreading kindness. Instead of just focusing on us, go chalk the driveway, write something awesome, put some cool things in your windows if you're, and ways to kind of get excited about even social distancing. loving and spreading kindness to others.
And I have to say, I was out for a run last weekend, actually on Easter, and I saw a bunch of writing. I actually slowed down and read it, and I actually took a little video of it. These two little girls, because they wrote their name. It's like, be happy, smile, you're the best. I'm just like, how cool is that?
Cool. And it has a domino effect that is contagious. We're like, wow, yeah, keep running, keep going, you got this. We don't hear enough of that. And I think I'm pretty confident when it comes to what we're going through right now, seeing so much of that on social media, like, and even running around my neighborhood, people getting excited to get other people, to encourage other human beings is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is amazing because it's a perfect opportunity because there is so much negative, there is so much darkness, but that is, you need light to see through that darkness. So what a beautiful opportunity to be that light, which is what you're doing.
It's been cool. I do. I mean, without sounding weird, like I feel very honored to be able to be where, thousands of kids that are tuning in on whether it's their iPhone, their iPad, their laptop, their computer, and they're listening. And, even if it's just one person that's, what, I'm going to get through this in a way that I'm going to be better. To me, it's like, that's a win.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of people right now that feel defeated, that are in a toxic home, right? I can't do this, I can't do that. And I have no idea what you're going through, but I'm going to say this. There's 7.7 billion human beings in the world, and there's only one you that was created. And you were created with a purpose, and you were created with intention. God didn't make a mistake. God doesn't make mistakes. And what are you going to do with that to change the world? And that might sound sugar-coated, super Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers. We more of that, of like, what am I going to do with the stuff I've been through and the stuff right now to make the world a better place? Yeah. And it's like, I one of the things that really rocked my world with that is I sat with a woman who just was like a superstar. She created a nonprofit a number of years ago. I'm going to say 35 years ago. She was walking down the streets in Jerusalem, and she was pregnant with twins. A car bomb went off. She lost one of her children, and she was in the hospital bed and had this moment of, and she shares this with me. I could let what happened to me consume me, or I can use this for goodness. I'm like, what? I remember sitting with her and like, you had this thought, and now fast forward years later, every day she's feeding hundreds and hundreds of people in Jerusalem. That's expanded, and they're opening a school. And it's one thing that happened that could have just been like, this is it. The world is crap. People are evil. And instead, she flipped the tables. Mm-hmm. She's altered people's lives. She's given life. And every single one of us has that decision to make. I've had some crazy crap happen in my life. I've had loss. I've had hurt. I've had boom, fill in the blank. What are you going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And so I do. That's kind of like what fuels me. What are we going to do? And part of that with making a difference is filling our cup. That's a big thing I've been focusing on for the past few months is we can't help other people if we're running on empty. Doesn't happen.
Right. You fill your car up, right?
Right.
I mean, you can let it run for a little while close to empty, but pretty soon
you're running on fumes and you're like, I can go to the next gas station. I can do 5 cents cheaper across town. Well, right. Listen, stupid head, listen, just fill your tank, because when you're going on fumes, which I've been guilty of many times in my life, it actually it's making the engine work harder. The quality of what's good. And that's the same with us, dude. If we think we can run on fumes and it's like Disney World, false. No, you're wrong.
And talking about fuel. So how did you get to the point with your past job, your past life, if you will?
It's not.
I feel like that too sometimes. Like, wait, I was a pharmacist. Oh my God. I still am, but not practicing in that sense. But
listen, I mean, I'm a therapist, but I'm not practicing right now.
Well, and I'm a little over the place sometimes, but even just thinking back to what you said, some of these kids are in a home that is so toxic for many different reasons. And you give them, whatever it is, a 20 or 30 minute, 5 minute, whatever it is, and you give them that little glimmer. And I'm sure you'll have many kids, whether it's today, tomorrow, or years from now, just say, I still remember that chat you gave us. during that crazy
I
time.
hope so, because, you know, you look at things in terms of even, you know, that they're putting out right now, you have, you know, I'm at a place that I'm like, you know what, I'm go a little crazy, stir crazy sometimes, but I'm in a safe environment. I've got my husband, I've got my son, you know, we're doing our thing the best we can, but you have other people that like they're feeling they're being physically abused, or dad lost his job and like we've got ramen noodles and that's it. So you know, and all these things, or, you know, I just, my cousin passed away from corona and I can't even go to the service, like all these different things. And so whenever I work with people, I never ever say, I know how you're feeling, because that drives me insane, because I'm not them. But I could say, listen, things have happened, things are happening. What you decide to do with it is up to you. And so you can't change mom's drinking, no matter how many times you hide the beer or put it down the drain, you know, or you can't, you know, your brother who's cutting and self-harming, it's you. And I believe when we start to not just focus, but empower people. You can't change the people around you, but you can change you, and stop pinning the blame of like, well, everybody else is, you know, doing this or everybody else is doing, well, you're not everybody else. And it makes me sound like my mom, but it's true. Like you're you.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with that? And I try from every fiber it's within me to get people excited about actually living. And I'll say, you know, we have a pulse. Everybody's got a pulse, but there's so many people who are actually not living, who are playing it safe, who are letting fear squish them like a bug, and who are not filling their cup. Because I had so many people say to me like, oh my gosh, you went around the world and you quit your job and that's got to be nice. You know how many, I actually had people say that to me right before I left my job. Like, you know, I had a few weeks or a month left of with the school year. And I said, what you don't know is that nothing's free. The hours I would wake up at 4:00 in the morning before I left to get on the road to go to school at like 6:15 in the morning, to then come home, right? And like, you know, do my thing. My son's going to bed. And now it's like 8:00 at night and I'm staying up till 10 to work on goodness chick stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get plopped in my lap. And I think sometimes we lose sight of like really rewarding things take work.
Yeah.
Right? We'd be seriously, if I could tell you some of the places that, I mean, trying to podcast and trying to write, I mean, where we think around the world and it's this glamorous, like we stayed in we didn't stay in hostels, we stayed in Airbnbs, we stayed, you know, in some places that were just, the Wi-Fi was like screwy, or, you know, whatever, just stuff. Nothing's ever going to go your way perfectly, but it's what you take from that, you know? And I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but it's like, what are you going to do? And you need to work hard. I have a third book coming out. Well, I wasn't laying in bed at night with blank pages and they just magically appeared and they were written. It took work. Absolutely. It took etching out time. It took, you know, investing in myself, because the first 2 books I didn't know that it was like hiring somebody to edit. It's kicking it out to different publication companies. It's having a social media specialist. Because you know what? I can write and I can talk and podcast, but when it comes to promoting myself, I am horrific. I am not good at it. And that's okay, right? Right? Because you got to wear all these hats. Well, you're not supposed to wear all those hats, because guess what? You're not going to be great at everything. And it's acknowledging that and saying, what am I going to invest? I remember Angie saying that. Are you investing in yourself?
Yeah, and that's so true. We try to wear all the hats and we can do it all. And I'm just,
I'll save a few $100 a month, or I'll save this. And that was part of my thing, but it was also like, I also didn't realize what was involved with launching a book or doing a podcast. And, you know, I mean, I just didn't know. And it's when you allow yourself to learn, because sometimes we don't, and we put obstacles in our way, and be willing to say, okay, this will actually be easier and better when I have somebody else do something that they're really good at, that's not my calling in life.
Yeah, that's not your love. I'm that way with just even writing posts. I'm like, let me just give you the topic. I'll give you a few bullet points. I love being on video. I love talking, but actually sit and be like, okay, this is what I want to say, but I still want to write a book. So listening to you, I'm just like, yeah, someday I want to do that. But, getting back to when
you can totally, you know, put it if it's one of your bucket lists. You know what? My second book actually happened when Angie was talking about how using your blog post or a post you've done and just putting it together. That's my second book, dude.
Oh,
Because there's so many things, you know, I've been reading like some of the stuff you've put out there. It's like, wow, right? Just grab it and you make it. You've already written a book. You just don't realize that you have.
you're gonna laugh. So I'm gonna show you. I have these note cards, and these are, I can, like, from my first memory ever of waiting in my crib for a bottle to moving to Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like all these little things that I'm like, okay, for some reason I need to write this down because that's a memory I have, and it's led to, you know, for me, maybe control issues with food or something. So it's so interesting, the whole process. But how did you know? Because we talk about fear versus fuel. Like, how did you know the right? I know there's not a right time because I say this, but you just knew that moment. Was there a certain moment when you knew you had to leave your career? Or
You know, it's funny. Like, I mean, this is going to sound maybe strange, but when I feel like God uses different circumstances to kind of nudge us. I do. And this is going to sound like, and this isn't meant to sound petty at all, but like I had my son and I was called in probably halfway through maternity, and I was informed that they were going to move my office. And that might not sound like a really big deal, but when they actually built the building, they actually made that office for my position where it was 2 doors to be able to access out in terms of for safety, confidentiality, like reasons. It was kind of away from stuff. And then it was, hey, we're going to put you here where you could hear everything outside the door, right? Everything. There was no privacy. There was nothing. And I think there was somewhat good intentions behind it, but it was like, I remember going home and talking to my husband at first being like really hurt by it. And then it was processing and saying, you know, when I actually came back to work and really trying to make it work, where it was like, I'm not able to serve these kids the way that I should because I'm in a really, it's not conducive. And I did voice that. I tried. And it was, I remember driving home one day from work and saying, this is not where I'm supposed to be anymore. I am 150%. I need to be here for these kids. I love my job, but it was a combination of that really being the flick, right? The flick to say like, okay. And then it was, you know, we're in the midst of a heroin epidemic, and I had certain views and different strategies that it was being not heard. Any of the things I was trying to throw out there. And some of the stuff was kind of ruffling feathers. And I'm a big believer in if you're doing you're doing the right thing, you're going to have people that don't agree with you and that you tick off, because if everybody likes you, you're doing something, you know, you're just not effective. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in life.
yeah.
And I really kind of felt unsettled where I was like, I'm really, and my faith is a huge part of my life. And I remember praying about it. And I was just like, this is not where we're supposed to be anymore. My husband was in the same district. He was tired. He felt like he was at a point that he was the hamster in the wheel. And like, you know what, like I'm not, this is not why I got into education. And then we had my son, and it was, you know what, he's not in school yet. We both want to go around the world. We're both ready to leave with where we're at, you know, and we have 2 older daughters. We're both, you know, they're actually both up north, they're adults. So it was, they weren't living at home anymore. And it was like, you know what, it's time. And I remember there was a point that I was driving home from work, and it was like, dude, I felt so free. And I was like, I literally couldn't tell you what's going to happen in 6 months. But I know this is where I'm supposed to go. And through prayer, but also just kind of following my gut instinct. And like, seriously, I love podcasting. I love writing. I motivational speaking, man. I dig it. I now can say I've spoken kind of in all different pockets of the world, and it's been a really cool journey. And I don't know, in 10 years, will I be doing the same thing? I don't know, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I do. I think life is a journey. And when I talk to kids or I talk to adults, I'll say, you know, how I live my life is at the end of the year, I'll sit down and think, if I'm watching a video of my life on Netflix, right? Did it evoke joy? Did it get me a little choked up? Did it make me a little like, like lose my breath a little bit? Because if it didn't, I didn't really live my year.
Yeah.
And so every year we've been given, every day is a gift. What are we going to do? My grandma, who was 99, just passed away in October. And she would say, you know, Erin, I'm 99, but I feel like I'm 70. And talking about how life, right? There's a verse in the Bible that life is but a vapor. And it's very true. We think we have forever. Life is a gift. What are you going to do with it?
And I love that fact. You're just a positivity, a positive light for people. And I mean, right now we need it even more, but we always need it. So you radiate that. Your energy is just like,
Well,
I mean,
so do you. And we need to, like, I think those flickers need to, it's coming together and
mhm.
creating like this ember of just awesome positivity. And am I always like, this is awesome, this is the best day of my life? No, but it's thinking, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you, you know what'll rock your world? I remember being in Cyprus and sitting in a refugee camp and listening to the stories of women who have just overcome famine, terrorism, you know, people being, I mean, massacred, not to get totally gnarly here, but
Mhm.
I mean, that'll put you in your place. I
Yeah.
mean, like, why are you here? I want a new beginning for my family, and I escaped A, B, C, and D. And I'm, oh, like, we are so blessed in this country. So many times we disconnect from that. And I know there's people in really horrible situations sometimes, but we also, there's pockets of the world that that would do anything to have what we have. I mean, I remember doing a tour of these women's homes that they lived in with 3, 4 kids. And it was like this little 300 square foot, this is your home with, you've got to fit your cooking stuff and your blankets and your memories and boop, this is it. And maybe it's for 2 months or maybe it's for 2 years. And so I think when we allow ourselves that's where I always advocate traveling, getting out of your comfort zone. You don't have to travel, you know, to Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic. Go outside of your county, and it challenges and it grows and it stretches you. And then throw on top of that volunteer. It'll rock your world, dude. Go give and help people.
Yeah, because then it humbles you in a way where maybe you wish you did have more, but then you look at what someone else has, and it's okay. I'm good. Like it.
I'm all good. I'm all good.
Yeah, so it's just putting everything in perspective. What do you think was your biggest, and I'm sure you had so many learnings on that. You said 10 months of traveling the world. What do you think was your biggest takeaway, if you can even come up with that?
My biggest takeaway is life is short, and
Mm,
it's too short not to make a difference.
mm,
And I believe that within all my heart. I do. And, you know, I don't have any desire to, you know, be famous or like be super rich. I just, you know, I want to live in a way that has made a difference. And that's really what I took away, just having the privilege of sitting with so many people,
mhm.
sharing coffee or tea with people who shared and opened their hearts to me in ways that just left me just humbled and grateful. And it just further inspired me to, what am I going to do with my life? I'm in the United States of America. I don't care what your political affiliation, religious affiliation, you are blessed, dude. And use your passions to change the world instead of tear people down or to point fingers. We could point fingers all day long. That doesn't change anything. Let's come up with
Have like
solutions.
3 of them pointing back at you.
Yeah, right. Like, it's a glass house. Like, you're throwing rocks at. We all have our stuff, man. You know, I got plenty of flaws. I got plenty of. What am I, Erin Lawler Patterson, going to do to make this world better? And whether it's in Vero Beach, Florida, or it's across the country or the globe, it's a choice.
Mhm.
And too many people are like, "Well, this stinks or that." Well, yeah, things stink, right? But if you keep a rotten apple in the bunch, it infects everybody. If you chuck it out and you focus on the super awesome, beautiful, delicious apples, you got some delicious apples. It's all perspective. It really, I believe we have the decision to own our feelings. And I would say that to kids, man, dude, I mean, the stories, holy smokes. And I'd say, I don't have any clue what you're going through, but I do know you're in charge of you. And I
Mhm.
would say to kids, man, like, who would share crazy stories, that's, you know, that I, in my heart, say, if you choose to allow yourself to be free of all the crap you can't change at home, but to start working on you, you will be one of the most impactful person that will approach people that would say, I want to be a counselor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be this. You will change people's lives if you allow your stuff to fuel you. instead of consume you, but it's a choice. And that's like my last book. It's called A Higher Level of Goodness: Lessons from the Drug Lady. It's really I'm going to say the word wrong. Bringing stories together from kids who graduated, and just like, what did you do with your life? And beautiful stories of this kind of like the light switch going on of, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to use this stuff to grow, to stretch. And it's so cool when we decide to do that instead of just hiding under the covers like we like to do sometimes, because dude, life can kick our butts.
Yeah.
But it's a choice. And I know I so rambled. I don't even know what you asked me.
I love it though, because it's
like, oh, what are you going to do?
Well, and it's such a passion for you. And I love the message of life is short and you are the only you are a limited edition, and
Yeah, dude, totally.
you got to give it everything you got.
But it's true. And you know what? I use the analogy, like I surf, and I say there's a difference when you're like chilling out, waiting for a set of waves, and you wait for that wave to come to you. You're like, oh, it's sick. It's super, like it's coming in, woo. And you turn around, you paddle, and it takes you. But it's different when you see the wave in the horizon and you actually paddle towards that wave, let it begin to carry you, but you're working and you drop in. The level and quality of the ride of your wave is just absolutely far surpasses if you wait for it. And it's the same thing with life. If you wait for opportunity, you wait for things to come your way, you're gonna be waiting. You're just not getting as many sets. You're just not. And the ride and the rush will absolutely not be to the magnitude that it could have been.
That's so cool. Oh my God, Erin, I love you. I'm so glad we reconnected.
Yeah, I was like,
yes. How can people find you? And I'll be posting all the links and things for you. Where can people find you? Tell us about you.
I am all things Goodness Chick. I'm goodnesschick.com. I'm Instagram, Twitter. I'm off my game a little bit with Twitter. Don't judge me. LinkedIn, everything Goodness Chick. My podcast can be found on all pod platforms. At Goodness Chick, I'm the Goodness Chick, but I actually am through the Mental Health News Radio Network, which is actually the only podcasting station in the world that focuses on pods, all things mental health. So it's really cool, amazing human beings. So I'm all things Goodness Chick.
Okay, because I want people to find you because you are awesome.
Thanks, dude. And I'll say, I'm going to do a little shameless plug here. If you're interested in either of my books before my third comes out, you can hop on Amazon and check me out. I've got Peace, Love, and Goodness: Lessons from the Drug Lady, or A Higher Level of Goodness: Lessons from the Drug Lady.
I love it. And what's your new book going to be?
Coffee and Conversation with the Goodness Chick. And it's just literally, 10 months of reflections with people and their stories. And it's I'm excited about it. And it'll be out in June.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we'll do this again. I love it.
Thank you very much.
Conversation.
I'm feeling stoked.
All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And until next time, be happy and be healthy. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of my YouTube channel. If you loved this episode, just click right here to subscribe, share it with a friend. Also, if you want to check out any of the other episodes of my season 2.0 of A Better Way to Heal, just click right here and you can do just that. So until next time, be happy, be healthy, and thank you for tuning in.